We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
It's the Weiliotis podcast.
I like it.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Weiliotis podcast. We have a very exciting episode for you today. I'm, of course, your host, Tom Weiliotis, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the great and wonderful Mikey Wheel. How you doing, my friend?
Hi, good to see you. What's going on? We've done one episode a week this month, which is Halloween month. So that's if we're gonna do consecutive, it's got to be for October.
All right, it's a record for us,
which is exciting. As always, have to point out we are the Weiliotis podcast. We have nothing to do with Ray Liotta. Our names together just sound similar to Ray Liotta. One day we might have him on and talk about the B movie or one of his other bigger movies. As always, we're sponsored by water. Made up 70% of the whole world and our bodies. Now it comes sparkling as well. I'm drinking some carbonated water. And then, let's kick it off and introduce our guest today. We have writer and director, filmmaker Mike P. Nelson.
welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for coming on. We are here, of course, to talk about the newest movie you directed, Wrong Turn, came out in 2021. Kind of reboot of the original franchise, which started out in 2003, written by the same writer, which is super exciting. That was a big thing that really sold me on it. We're going to just do our normal kind of intro topics and then get into the movie. So, Tom, what are you excited about for movie news, new trailers? What have you watched?
So as far as like movie news goes, I'd say for one thing, we talked about it in the last episode, but the new Batman trailer dropped recently. Matthew Reeves looks pretty incredible, honestly. It's cool to see a more like dark detective-y, well, not dark because all Batman movies are kind of dark, but just it looks like it's going more in that detective approach, which I like.
I didn't love it.
The trailer?
I think I'm just waiting for more Riddler. I'm waiting for more Paul Dano, and I think I get that's what they're doing, is teasing him the most, but I wanted to see more of him in this trailer. But it's Robert Pattinson, it's going to be good, so I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
I mean, really just some new releases coming out. There's some pretty cool stuff coming out this Friday. Antlers,
yes.
Scott Cooper movie finally coming out. I remember seeing that trailer like 2 years ago.
Yes.
I know, yeah, same with you, and very excited for it.
It's been pushed back
it looks awesome.
so much, and it's Guillermo del Toro produced, so it's going to be good. And then Last Night in Soho comes out this weekend. By the time people are listening to this, they'll already be in theaters, so definitely go check them out. We had two big actors pass away too over the past week. Peter Scalari, he was in Girls. He was in the Honey I Shrunk the Kids TV show, which I loved. He was in Gotham. James Michael Tyler from Friends, he passed away as well. I believe TBS is doing playing a couple of his funniest episodes. That's it. That's it for the more sad news. The new Buzz Lightyear trailer came out, which looks very interesting. Looks good.
Oh, I saw that. I saw that I was skimming Facebook, and I haven't checked it out yet, but
looks epic.
It looks epic. Okay.
It looks epic.
Yeah. So it's not actually about the toy; it's about the man who inspired the toy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Starring Chris Evans. Yep. Yeah. So I think it looks really good. It's Disney. It's Pixar, and it looks very epic. I think that'd be the word I'd use. The director Donnie Darko, Richard Kelly, I read today, is teasing a new movie. They did Donnie Darko. They did S. Darko off of his sister. Never watched that one, though. Zack Snyder is doing 3 things off of his Army of the Dead Netflix movie. The sequel's called Planet of the Dead. He's doing an animated movie or series, and then he's doing a prequel about the robber. The Cowboy Bebop trailer dropped, and then super exciting horror news. I just found this out. This Friday on Paramount Plus, the newest Paranormal Activity movie comes out, and then there's a documentary coming out, too. So,
oh yeah, that comes out this week or
this Friday on Paramount Plus. Yeah, both of them.
Okay.
So super excited about that. What about you, Mike? You have anything you're looking forward to, or?
Gosh, what's really interesting is, I I think the latest stuff that I've been watching um, uh, has been I've been trying to sneak in episodes, like at least two a week, of Mayor of Easttown.
Oh, great show.
Um,
Okay.
that show is kind of blew me away. Yeah, I had gotten some recommendations to watch it, and I kind of just kept putting it off. And then I started the first episode. And I was like, okay, this is pretty good, and you just suddenly get hooked, and all these people just seem all the characters just seem very grounded, and obviously Kate Winslet is you haven't quite seen her like this before, and which is really cool. And what's great is like she completely disappears. There is no Kate Winslet. It just doesn't seem like there's any Kate Winslet in the show. It's definitely just Mare. But it's a really interesting like take on like it's not quite a procedural. It like has procedural elements to it, but for it being a cop show, for some reason it just feels denser and richer than your average cop show. There's more to it than just a cop show, um, and I think just the side stories and everything like that, and like how all those things that seem sort of like happenstance or like whatever, like all somehow tie up into the bigger picture. Which again, that's great TV, but it's hard to do it and make it seem so natural and just um, like they just doesn't seem like they're trying, which which is pretty impressive. They're just making a show about these people that have some very interesting things happening to them. So really been enjoying that.
What channel is that
Uh,
one on?
that's HBO Max.
HBO. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to add that to the
Yeah.
list. I've heard it's good.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. Like I highly recommend it. And then checked out Halloween Kills, and before that watched Malignant. I honestly don't watch as many movies as I should, and if I do watch movies, a lot of times it's me. Um, we always when we keep the TV on in the house, or we turn the TV on every so often in the house and just let it go, or like if we leave the house, we'll turn it on. And I always have it set to. I'm here in Minnesota, and we have a channel 9.3, and it's just called Movies. And all day, through the night, all it does is play movies from the 30s to the early 2000s,
Wow, that's
Oh,
a
that's awesome.
range. Yeah.
and it's just random. Like I mean, they have themes. Like obviously, this month is their horror films and stuff like that. But even that, like when they're doing like the horror films and stuff, it's like every October there's like a different sort of vibe. Like this year they're doing retrospectives on like Vincent Price and Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. So they're showing all those movies, and then they have like a Hammer week, um, and then but then that like every Thursday and Sunday they don't show horror movies. Those are like the noir days, and even like any month, it doesn't matter what month of the year it is. Thursdays and Sundays, all they play is dark noir movies from like the 30s and 40s and 50s, and then occasionally one from like the 70s will creep in there. Um, and it's a lot of fun. And so I have a 6-year-old son, and so he's gotten to see a lot of old movies and that's been a lot of fun to to um, show him a lot of these things. Some of them that I haven't even seen. So like him and I are watching some of these for the first time. And there
That
was
must be
one.
fun. Like
Yeah.
especially if
That's
you're showing him
exciting.
something that
Yeah.
you've seen and seen his
Well,
first reaction to it.
well, and I think the one that I'll never forget was when we watched Cool Hand Luke together. Watching Cool Hand
Nice.
Luke with a 6-year-old, and he was glued, like he could not stop, and he was just so fascinated by it, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, at 6 years old, I don't think I would have been able I wouldn't have held my attention so much. But like he was into it, and he had so many questions, like, what are they doing? How come they're being mean to that guy? What did he do? How come he's eating that many eggs?
Oh yeah.
Like it was such a fun experience to watch that with him
Cool
and
to see
stuff.
that
So
from a kid's perspective too. That puts a whole new spin
yeah,
on it, and Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I feel like there was a YouTube channel or something where it was like a kid reviews movies with their parent, and it does like a side by side or something.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
think that's a cool
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah.
And
And then I'd say the movie that I watched recently that probably very little people have heard of is a film called Walk the Dark Street. And that was on that movie station, and it was a it was a um, very unexpected noir that I would highly recommend. I can't remember the actor's name, but it's the guy who he's the rifleman on that TV show, the Rifleman,
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
Western TV show, and he was also the crazy guy in Tourist Trap, the horror movie Tourist Trap. Anyway, this is like when he's super young. I think it was before the Rifleman, and it's just about this guy who thinks that this army sergeant uh, accidentally killed his brother in war, and so he invites him over to his house, and he's like, "Hey, I want to give you a challenge. Like, I'm going to give you a gun, and I got these special bullets with like film in there, and then when I'm a big game hunter, and I want to hunt the next best thing, and that's man." He goes, "Well, we're going to get arrested if we try to kill each other." He's like, "No, no, no. These bullets have film in it. See?" And he does it, and he takes it, he develops it, and he shows him like, "See," and then it puts a target on the person's head, and then if you take that picture, that's the person who will win. Of course, he doesn't know that this guy has a really big beef with him, and he puts a real bullet in his gun, and they're literally walking around the streets of Hollywood with rifles slung on their shoulder in bags, and hunting each other, and it's a great exercise in tension, and what this other guy's intentions are, and the other guy's kind of like, ah, whatever, and I don't know. Really, really, I'd highly recommend it. It's a short movie too. I think it's like 70 minutes, but
yeah,
it's
my kind of movie. Movies are too long these days. So
it was very, very
yeah,
good, very, very tight, and very interesting.
It's
humans
called Walk the Dark Street.
Walk the Dark Street. Yeah, it's from I
Nice.
think it's the early 50s.
Humans
Okay,
hunting
cool.
humans is a good genre of movie. That's the Tom and I just wrapped our first screenplay together. Our next screenplay is kind of a human hunting human aspect, which I
Nice.
like to see in movies. And yeah, I think something too about just marathons. Like everything's at our fingertips now. You can watch anything on a streaming app and this and that. But like I still look forward to, even though I have it on DVD, the Twilight Zone marathons on the 4th of
Mhm.
July every year on Sci-Fi. And then I think Christmas to New Year's week, there's always their marathons on then, and I still look forward to that. And I remember my mom when I grew up would tell me that Wizard of Oz was on once a year. You could never watch it any other time. It was on once a year, and that was the only time you could watch it. And it's just times have changed so much in terms of how easy it is to get things, but it's still
That's
nice to
very
have
true.
that and still take advantage of the special channels and holidays and all of that. So I think that's cool. What
Yeah.
what have you been watching? Oh, actually, I do have to ask this because we covered Halloween Kills last week, and we also covered Malignant a few weeks ago. I was super curious of just your thoughts on Malignant, but what did you think of both of those movies?
I really liked *Malignant*. I thought it was like finally somebody just kind of let somebody do something very bold, but strangely commercial at the same time. Like, it felt like the James Wan film that you would go to see at the movie theater, and so there was like a comfort there, but then there was also like it takes this very unique kind of twist, pays homage to some very to some great films from the past, um and they just I mean, I hate to say like he's earned doing that, but in reality, that's kind of I feel like the way that it is. Like I don't think that you're gonna you know walk in and get a budget like that to do that kind of a film at the scale that it was at, and put it out as a wide release.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that it's great that he did do it, and I think it's great that it did do very well, because I think that it just goes to show you that especially in the genre realm, people are people are ready and willing to take those chances. And I think even more so than um, sometimes like the art house horror, which I feel like some people feel a little bit put off by, because it almost feels it's like too intellectual or something like that. Like that people are kind of like, oh, you think you're so smart, whatever, like smart horror, like so boring. Um, which I don't agree with, but with *Malignant*, I thought it was a great turn to just show that people will go see and will take a chance on and will enjoy uh, a movie like that does just do crazy shit, crazy stuff, and just take a crazy turn of events.
And he's he's
Yeah,
he's made Hollywood enough money. I mean, of course, Saw franchise, and then all of the Conjuring movies. But he's
Insidious.
actually, yep, he's the first Asian director to hit $1 billion at the box office, because that was with Aquaman. So I mean, like, and Aquaman was cool to see, like, such a big horror director take that on.
Mhm.
And I mean, yeah, it was cool to, like, this is that kind of moment where, like, once Seth Rogen started taking over Hollywood and he made movies that were like, you don't do one for you do one for them. All of his movies now are just for him, and it's great. And this was
Mhm.
James Wan's, like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. Like, I've proven myself. I'm gonna do whatever I want, and I'm gonna make the weirdest movie. Once I learned about what it inspired it and what it was trying to do and nailed on the head, I think I respected it a lot more. But the first time around, I was very confused watching it. I was very, very confused. But it was still scary, still holds up, and it's one of the most original movies I've ever seen in my life. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I thought it was very very fun, and yeah. I mean, it was a good movie. Like legitimately, like I thought it was a good movie. I mean, maybe not everything adds up to a certain extent, or it doesn't. It definitely takes its liberties. Um, but at the same time, like that none of that actually bothered me all that much.
yeah,
I think it's
Um,
just too. It was just too much fun. Like even near the end, the that fight scene in the where the cops were, like it was
yeah.
totally unexpected. Totally unexpected. There's a lot of very unexpected stuff in that movie.
the
But I
body
almost feel,
count, the body
yeah.
count in that one scene alone.
Oh yeah, he
Ooh.
kills everybody in that room, and I think it's interesting that between this movie and even we just talked about last night in Soho, it seems like I don't know more directors maybe right now. I'm seeing more like Gallo inspired stuff right now because there's certainly a lot of that in *Malignant*, and last night in Soho kind of looks like that too a little bit,
Mhm.
especially with like the crazy the reds and the neon lights and everything like that. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to checking that one out for sure.
Oh, that makes sense. I was just gonna say, in terms of what we watched as well, or things we're excited for. Have you watched the trailer for The Black Phone? It's based off of a story by Joe Hill. I watched the trailer
I
today for the first time.
I want to check that out. I think it's
Yeah.
a really cool concept.
Talk
I
about
think it's
innovative.
yeah, yeah. But like at the same time, like what a very it's so simple. You know what I mean? And it's like you get it right off the bat. You're like, I see what's happening here.
Yep.
And not to its detriment. I think it's simple and you get what's going on, and I think that's like what's intriguing about it. Like that it feels fresh and unique, and has it has a thing. You know what I mean? It has its identity is very strong, and I like that.
It's definitely innovative. It's one of those movies where I was like, damn, I wish I wrote it. Not that I think I have that capacity or mindset of Stephen King's son. um, but I saw it and was just like, this is brilliant. How's it taken this long for somebody to make this? I don't think it's gonna be like terribly scary. I think it's gonna be more of kind of like a heartfelt kind of movie with the connection. And I think as long as the ensemble is strong enough, like in, It and Stranger Things and all that, it's gonna be a great movie. And Ethan Hawke is a bad guy too. They're saying this is unlike anything he's ever done. So
Okay.
super excited about that.
yeah,
And
he
then,
looks very creepy in that, and
oh yeah,
it's also this is Scott Derrickson, right? He made
yep,
*Sinister*, and yeah,
yep,
yeah, really good director.
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited for that. And then before we move on, Halloween Kills. So Tom and I are torn on it. I did not love the first two. I've been so excited for them. What were your thoughts on the first two so far?
Um, yeah, I mean the first one, like I was kind of lukewarm on. Like I was kind of like, I see what they're doing here, and it like it's very different than like from *Malignant*. Like *Malignant*, I just feel like it was very there was just a lot of creativity happening.
Hmm.
Halloween, the new Halloween Kills. Well, we'll start with just the first one. was a well made movie.
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
you know, it's doing all the right things. Um, but that doesn't necessarily make it like super exciting to me. Like, yeah, sure, it's doing all the right things, but like sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that it wins. You know what I mean? And
So like maybe like too expected. Because
yeah,
I,
I
I
mean,
remember I remember people comparing at the time, saying this was like the Force Awakens of Halloween, where it's like it almost feels like an homage, like too much maybe to the '78 one.
yeah,
That's
I
what I
mean,
thought. I thought it paid way too much homage to the first one. Bring John Carpenter back, as cool as that is. Like, it seemed like he made the same score. It seemed like the zoom ins and the murders were the same. It seemed too shot for shot remakey for me, I think.
yeah, I mean, and you know, I can just feel, you can feel an executive in that sort of situation. You know, and especially that it's, you know, it's such a highly regarded IP and all this stuff. Just like, you know, you don't want to mess it up. I mean, I think honestly, like, you know, say what you want about the zombie ones, like that was a bold move for them to take that IP and just let zombie go, you know, kind of go to town with it.
Yeah.
Which I think was, again, I think is neat to see, you know, an artist like that given an IP and just kind of letting him go crazy with it. But no, I mean, look, I think the first Halloween, I think it is a crowd pleaser. I mean, I think I don't dislike the movie. It's not like, it's not a film that I get excited about. I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that happened. Halloween Kills, on the other hand, I feel like, with the exception of it being so heavy-handed in its approach, was more of an enjoyable watch for me. And I think so. I loved the flashbacks. You know, talking to um, homages, like the flashbacks in the beginning of the film, I thought were freaking great. Like
Yeah, they looked great too. Like,
that was just like, I got tingles watching that stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like they really like they really connected the two together, and like the Michael thing, he looks great, and even Loomis, like they made up a
oh
guy that
yeah,
sort of looked like Loomis, like
Yeah, the
in makeup,
casting was good. Yeah.
like it wasn't, you know, it didn't seem digital, and it doesn't. I guess it wasn't, like it was real prosthetics and stuff. So that was really neat. And so yeah, I mean, I think, you know, overall I had a good time watching it, and then and I like, you know, kind of what it was saying, and honestly, like, you know, I look back to like the first Halloween, and that movie being, you know, really about, you know, safety being breached in suburbia, and the voices of, you know, young people, young women, not being heard in that environment, in that place. And you know, like, I mean, the scene of Jamie Lee Curtis running away from a killer, knocking on doors, and they're just like closing their windows, is like, it's like that's the theme. Like that's what the movie is. It's like it's about, you know, a generation who's not being heard. And I thought that, honestly, even more so than the first Halloween remake, from David Gordon Green, I thought this one actually played to that idea, that the first one did more. But again, it talked about minorities in suburbia, and I think it's why, you know, we saw, like, you know, the 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 older couple, the black and the white couple at the beginning get murdered, and of course the gay couple, and it just it touched on these demographics, which it was very hard to watch at times, at those times, but it did speak to, I think, you know, those groups of people living in suburbia, and you know, their their experience, and not being heard, and of being silenced, if you will. So I actually thought that was really smart of them to do that, and it's strange because I feel like so much of how the film is so violent, that I think that that overshadowed a lot, or it almost took the place of um, that message, maybe to a fault, or to a fault, I think. but I don't know. Like I got it. Like I understood it. On the other side of things, I felt like there was a little too much heavy-handedness. Like I like that stuff, like where they're talking about like different groups of people that live in the suburbs dealing with not having a voice. But then like the evil dies tonight.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
big
yeah.
monologue at the end with Jamie Lee Curtis talking about who Michael Myers is and what he represents. The every single character in the first act into
Yep.
the second act had to talk about 40 years ago. This is what he did.
Yep.
I'm like,
Move out of the town.
I'm like, holy shit. Did you know that the only time I needed to know anything about Michael Myers was when Anthony Michael Hall did his little stand-up thing at the
Yep.
bar?
Yep.
That's the only time they would have had to say it.
Yep.
And it would have introduced me to his character as an older man. And he would have introduced the characters that return. And that's it. We wouldn't have needed to hear it again. But Judy Greer has to say it. Jamie Lee Curtis has to say it. 40 years ago he did this. Tonight it's done. You're just like, God, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it takes me out of the movie.
Yep.
Every single time it took me out of the movie, because we all know. I don't even care. Like if you've never seen a Halloween before and you're suddenly jumping into this, you figure it out like right away and you don't need to know anymore.
I agree, and I
It's
even think
ridiculous.
that I like that they brought back characters even from the first one, but same thing like you said, they really are very heavy handed with it, and how they reintroduce them. Like, oh hey, this was the nurse that was with Loomis when they drove to the insane asylum in the first movie, and like they really have to just like they had to really drill that into, even though it's pretty obvious, especially to anyone who's even a casual fan of the series.
That's
And that's what I mean. Like, you have that scene where they're at the bar. That's it. That's all you need. But like literally every character, we have to get reminded. It's everything that they said in the prior film. They say it again, and they say it 50 times, and you're just like, man, you could have cut all that out and put either more stuff in there, or just had a leaner film. It
Yeah.
could have been better.
I just wish they told us to watch the original again before and cut out half the movie. Like I didn't need to know about like the mailman delivering mail 40 years ago when Michael was killing. Like that's what a lot of the movie felt like, where it was like Michael walked by this person 40 years ago. Let's show you that scene and then how traumatic his life is. And it was just, it was a bloodbath, like you said. It was a slaughterhouse kind of movie. That's what I thought
It
the
was
first one
totally,
was missing. So I like that part a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean that was enjoyable to a certain extent. The one thing that I was really bummed about. I really wanted Big John and Little John to
Yes.
get at one point get the upper hand on Michael. I just thought it would have been one of the most satisfying moments in the movie. Like I understand, like they got to go. It's part of what the movie's about. But like when when Big John like takes his shirt off and he's just getting ready and like there's no music, everything is just sound. He's like, they have the knife, they're going up there, and you're just like, oh man, like something's gonna go down. Little bit of a letdown, like
It was quick.
for me at that moment. Like I really wanted something to happen, like that was more than just another murder scene. Another thing that drove me nuts too was in that moment when he's like, oh Michael, you came home. I'm just like, that's where it just becomes theater. At that point, the
Yeah.
movie becomes theater. At that point, you're just kind of like, okay,
I
yeah, I just
See, I like
so
that because I felt like, that was one thing I wanted to learn more about. Is I love learning about people who move into the house that's haunted. Like who's living in the Amityville house right now. I want a whole movie of how Big John, Little John bought this house, why they moved in. It seemed to me like Michael McDonald, who we both thought when we saw in the credits was the singer and not the hilarious Met TV actor. We both like, or at least in that scene, I thought he was sacrificing himself to Michael. Like he was happy Michael was home and he was just like, take me. Like I'm ready. We knew you were gonna come back at some point. I like that part. But yes, theatrical.
yeah. I mean, look, I liked the turn of events and like that they had the house and everything like that. But like again, it became too theatrical. It became a little bit. It reminded me what I was watching almost too much,
Yeah.
and it was just
Yeah.
it was very just again like
A lot of
that
hand
forceful. Yeah.
Yeah.
In any case, but
Yeah.
honestly, I remember it ended, and I was like, huh. Actually, kind of enjoyed myself more with this one than I did the first one, which
Definitely.
is interesting, which is weird, but
One more coming out next year too. Halloween ends. Halloween of next year. That's
mhm.
exciting. Yeah. Well, let's dig into. I'm glad we got to cover that. I feel like we should splice this back into our Halloween and Malignant episodes too, because I love asking people about what they thought about Malignant. Because most people, I didn't get it either at first, so I'm not surprised when people are I don't get it, but it's something you have to watch twice. So there's no doubt about that. But yeah, we're definitely going to get into the Wrong Turn movie, but we just kind of want to learn more also about your background. I think one thing that's exciting, you said you live in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I never made it to Hollywood. I moved out to Denver for work as a recruiter. I'm back in New England now. I still dream of being, in the industry somehow, but I think it's super exciting, that, it's 2021. You were a film director and writer and you live in Minnesota. So I think that like, is that where you grew up? Has that always been home?
Yeah, it's been home. Born and raised here, and yeah, it was one of those things where I found a really good, I've wanted to make movies my whole life, and we can go as far back and say and do the whole cliche thing about you took your dad's video camera and you made a bunch of cruddy horror films and monster movies growing up, and I mean that was my story. But ultimately, in terms of now and working in the industry and living here, it's like, um, I mean, I remember, and this was prior to COVID, when I first gotten the domestics, and after that happened, and I was flying out to LA, 2 or 3 times a year, staying for a week or two, and taking meetings and stuff, and trying to get the next job, and um, but like I was like making it work, and it was working. I wasn't gone enough to warrant moving.
Yeah.
And my wife and I had talked about if I was out there, or if I was doing stuff away from home, that was taking up like half the year, then maybe it'd be worth thinking about moving to wherever that is, probably more than likely LA. And um, I love LA. I love going out there. I love spending time there. But I think the thing that I also love is that I get to come home. And so when I get to go out there, it feels very special. Yeah, yeah. I'm always going out there for something. You know what I mean? It's like I have a ton of friends out there, so I'm either going out to see them and take meetings, or talk to an executive about a movie idea, or meet with an actor or something. And so like there's always some excitement, bubbling when I'm out there, and that's the way I like to keep it. So I'm actually hoping that I can stay where I'm at and continue doing what I'm doing, and stay close to family and the friends I have here. And I mean, now post COVID, like with Zoom, and everybody's just kind of like ready and willing to just be like, yeah, let's just jump on a computer call. I mean, look, I love the face to face. I love being in a room and pitching to a room full of executives. It's literally one of my favorite things to do, like in this process, because I get really into it and I put on a big show. But with that said, it still allows me even more opportunities now, because I think more people have just accepted it, and it's allowing me more opportunities to meet more people, talk to more people, and and keep those doors open. So.
And you mentioned the domestics. So I watched when it first came out in 2018, and then in the commentary you talked about getting the script for Wrong Turn in 2017. So it seems like both movies. I know there's some Easter eggs in the commentary. For any of our listeners, pick up the DVD as commentary, deleted scenes, extended, whole bunch of extra, content, a lot of Easter eggs. You talked about the same set designer on both movies, things like
Yep.
that. I noticed that the masks were somewhat similar in both movies. So there's definitely some really cool similarities. But what did that look like working on the domestics and also having Wrong Turn in mind? What does that look like when like what your next project is and you're toggling back and forth between both?
Well, see, and this is where like there's a little, that is maybe a little glossier than what it actually was, because so Wrong Turn, we finished making Wrong Turn. So we shot it we shot it in the fall into winter of 2016.
Oh wow.
We finished the film in the summer of 2017, and it didn't get released for a whole year.
Oh wow. Okay.
Orion was just starting up at MGM at that time, And so we were going to be one of the films to first go under their Orion Classics label.
Cool.
And so they hadn't quite figured that out yet, and they were piecing that together. And so we were they were kind of waiting for that. And so I think it was late 2017 that I got the script, but when I was finishing domestics, like I was pitching for other projects, and I pitched quite a few, and I got a lot of no's. I was pitching, for stuff that was by other writers. I was pitching a script of my own, and got dished a very nice cold lesson in reality, which was just because you made a movie doesn't mean that ensures you're going to get more work, at least right away. And so, and then really, Wrong Turn didn't start shooting. We didn't start shooting that movie until it was mid September of 2019.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was done, with domestics. Like domestics was done 2017. I think it was June or July of 2017. We were done. Movie was done. Post was done. Um, and so those years in between, the rest of 2017, all of 2018, and a majority of 2019. I mean, even though I had signed on to direct Wrong Turn, this was this had to have been the was it the fall of 2018 or the summer of 2018 or something like that, I was able to get my thoughts together, put a pitch together, and actually pitch it to Robert Kulzer over at Constantine. um, they're like, okay, great, yeah, we really want you to do this, but and so contracts were made up, and there was still no guarantee this thing was going. And for the longest time, we were trying to figure out casting, and we were trying to figure out when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen. And for a long time, it didn't seem like it was going to happen. And at that point, money's running low. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like, I'm thinking, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to focus on. And I'd taken a couple small editing gigs to kind of float things, and my wife was teaching at the art college here, but uh, there was a real time of real struggle in between, and the hard questions of, is this sustainable? Is this going to be enough? And do I even want to keep doing this? Because domestics was super stressful. Wrong Turn, in the early stages was stressful because I didn't know if it was going to happen. And I was getting turned down over and over and over from all these other scripts that I was pitching for. Um, I mean, those are stories in themselves, and it was very, very difficult, and that's where a lot of you start to build up the tough skin. And my skin's still getting leathery, like it's still pretty baby soft right now. I'm still pretty sensitive when I hear the no, but ultimately, this is where then the thing that you put your heart and soul into comes and pays off, because I remember it was the spring of 2019, and it was like we were almost out, like bank account was thin, and we were like, well, okay, it's time to start looking for more work, and I'm just gonna have to maybe start focusing on this something else, and really just go into that, and maybe put this off to the side a little bit. And I'll still dabble, I'll still try to get work. But and I got the first domestics residual check, and that floated us uh, to Wrong Turn happening that
Wow.
fall. And so it was to me, it was a very clear message of, you stick with it. And domestics, I look at domestics as like this movie that, like, we there was a lot of ups and downs making that film, but at the same time, like, I put a lot of heart, a lot of soul into that thing, and a lot of that movie is very much me. And how from 2013, when I came up with the short, to when the movie was released in 2018, and then 2019, seeing that first check that literally brought us out of the red, and floated us to Rock Turn, where it was like the next job. It was like, wow, I was like, there was somebody watching out. There was somebody watching out for
Yeah.
us. And and you know, I always like to play that or think of it as like this, um, you know, God just testing. He's like, I'm just gonna wait until the very last second. And then suddenly he's just like, here you go. You did it. You passed. You passed the dungeon wizard test.
Yeah, right. And I assume that's probably like even extra sweet, no, like considering it was a short film all the way back in 2013,
Mhm.
and then to that, you're right, to that last point when you got that residual from it, and
And it was just like we can do this now. And then it was weird. Residual check came, and then 2 months later, like the movie was just like moving. It was just like, yep, it's happening. It was like out to locations, looking at locations. Where do you want to, you know, I want to shoot this in America. I want to shoot this in the Appalachians. We can shoot it in the Appalachians. Oh my God. Like everything just started happening. Like, oh, we're going to be there. We're going to be there out in September or August, I think it was, or even earlier than that for pre-pro. Oh my God. It just like, everything just snowballed. Everything was happening. And suddenly it was just like, we're there. We're shooting a movie. Oh my God. I'm making movie number 2. I can't believe it. Like it never seemed like it was going to happen, but it did. To which I will say, like, that's where you can't give up. You just have to keep going. You have to trust the process, believe in the process, and believe in yourself and the visions that you have for these things, because ultimately somebody will see it, especially if you have a strong point of view.
Ride the momentum wave. And you were saying
Scary
that,
stuff.
you know, the in between. I remember sophomore year of college, I studied film in college. Sophomore year, took a screenplay writing class. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I started reading books about screenplay writing, watching documentaries, and one that I'll always remember, hopefully it's correct how I remember it, the writers of Alien. The two writers of Alien, these men wrote it,
Yep,
got
Dan
like,
O'Bannon.
yeah, I hopefully the story's correct. It sounds like you know the story. They, like, you know, Oscar nominated, all this stuff. They were on top of Hollywood, and then a few years later, they had to move their wives and them into the same like apartment because they had never sold anything again, and like they just went from the highest high to lowest low, and like it doesn't matter what you did a year ago, like you have to always be, you know, on top of things, and that's just super interesting.
It's true. I mean, if you do, I mean, look at though. Like, I mean, there's the few that slip that make it through and continue to like expand and grow into just like mega stars, you know, both whether you're an actor or a filmmaker or a writer. But then they're the ones that, like, you know, they squeak through, they get some major award recognitions, they are the golden child for that year. And then suddenly, like, wait, it's been like 8 years. I've never have they made another film? And like maybe they did, and like it didn't get in anywhere to any festivals. It maybe played as like an official selection at Cannes, but you know nobody saw it, and it was just it's like, oh God, like that's
Yeah.
tough, man. That's a tough racket.
I
right,
I was joking
right.
with Tom before this. I because we both watched the domestics like the last 24 hours. I said it's sad that Lance Reddick and David Dalmachian, is that how you pronounce it?
That's Melchian. That's
Dalsmelchian.
Melchian.
I'm messing up my own joke. I was saying it's sad that we never saw them after the domestics. You know, that was the last thing they were in. They are just everywhere now, and it's
Everywhere.
so cool to watch them and everything.
I
I
know,
mean,
and those guys are amazing. Like I still get a ping every so often from David,
Oh, that's awesome.
and and like I don't know if you follow him on IG or Instagram or anything like that, but like that he is like literally the one of the sweetest human beings on the planet. Like he's like we he was only there in Louisiana where we were shooting for a day, like when we
oh
shot the
wow,
stuff with for Willie. Like he was like in, they tailored him, they you know they had made his costume and they tailored it, got him in it. Yeah, he maybe got in there the night before or whatever, but we shot with him that day and then he left I think that evening or the morning after. That was it. Like that scene we shot just that day. That was it. That was all we shot. And
wow.
but just that time I got to spend with him, it was like in between things, just sitting there and just sat there. We just talked about our kids. Like his kid was a year older than mine at the time, and you know, he just talking about the character and like he was telling me about like you know when he got the script across his desk, or he didn't even get the whole script. He got the sides that he was going to be reading. And he goes, "Yep, I read it," and I was like, "Yep, I'm in. Like, I want this. Like,
Wow.
this is zany. This is insane. I just want to do this."
Yeah, what a
And I, of
scene.
course, freaked out because you know, I mean, he'd done quite a bit of stuff, but still, like, I was a fan of that guy, like, legitimately a fan. Like, this was before, like, he had gotten his real big break. Like, I mean, he had done Prisoners, and
Oh yeah.
you know, obviously he was in
The Suicide
uh,
Squad recently.
well, Suicide Squad recently, but like, I mean, he was the Joker henchman in Dark Knight, and that was, you know, the first
Oh
time I
yeah.
saw him, the first
Yep.
time anybody really saw him.
Yeah.
And I remember like when his name came up in the casting, and I was like, that guy, like he's got to be, no, he's Willie. Like, see if he'll do it. Oh my god! And I was freaking out, and then of
Cool.
course, then he said, "I'll do it," and that was one of the, I think one of the magical things about Domestics was the fact that like the script was getting passed around to all these high level actors, and they were all saying yes. Like, there were all these women who responded super strongly to the script for Nina, and I was like, I was on Skype calls. This is before Zoom. I was on Skype calls with with all these actresses and actresses that like I had seen in things that, like, one of the first actresses I talked to was Rachel Brosnahan,
Oh wow. Okay.
who's
Wow.
now the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and this
Yeah.
is before that. Like, she was in a couple small productions at the time, but you know, nothing
Wow.
very big. And at one point, Alison Brie
Oh,
was going to
cool.
be Nina. Like, she was literally signed on to do it, and that was when we were going to be shooting in Canada, and then MGM couldn't commit to the time frame in Canada, and then she was like, "Well, there's this other project that's coming up," and of course, it was this huge film opportunity for, and I can't remember what it was for. It was I would have to go back and look at her filmography around that time, but it was like something I'm like, it was like a huge break for her, and she like killed it, and it was amazing. And I was like, well, that, you know, it was meant to be.
And she just did
Um,
her first horror movie too with her husband, The Rental.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I fucking love the
Did you? Yeah.
retreat, man.
Yeah.
In any case, but you know, and then, you know, I got to work with Brad Leland from Friday Night Lights,
Yes,
Buddy
Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Garrity, which literally, like, he was the guy that I wrote that
Oh,
part
cool.
for,
Yeah.
not thinking that I would ever get him. And of course, like, he was the only person we sent it to, and he said yes right away.
Soon as
So
I
it was
heard his
all,
voice, I was like, "That's yep, Friday Night Lights."
and so it was those kinds of like bits of magic that really made that movie super special. I got to work with Maxine Alexander, who had shot High Tension, which for
Mhm.
Alexander Aja, which High Tension was like, it was like the slasher film that kind of like showed me that like slashers weren't dead. Say what you want about the ending, say what you want, that, you know, that it's not a perfect movie, but it was one of the most beautiful, most visceral things I'd ever seen. And that was this, what was it, 2002. I saw it before it came to the States. I got a Korean bootleg of it, and it was just, and I'd never seen anything like that before. Like, you know, I was so used to kind of like silly 90s aware of themselves slashers that, you know, were, and this was just like balls to the wall, like, you know, you have to watch everything, and you're just, and I was like, I can't believe, like, this is like, this movie is how I imagined when I walked through a video rental store as a 10-year-old in the horror section, when I like sneaked away from my dad and I like went and looked at all the covers. When I looked at those covers, this is what I imagined those movies like that. It was like
Cool.
they were this brutal and uncompromising. Obviously, a lot of them, most of them weren't, and I was able to see those. But like, this is how I imagine those movies actually being. And so when I got on the phone with him, it was such a, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, holy crap, I get to work with you. In any case, it was a very cool experience. A lot of fun things. Sonoya Mizuno, who, you know, also at the time was like, she was, I think she was just an Ex Machina before that, and it was just, I was just kind of like, I can't believe that this is happening. Like, I'm getting all these people
It's a fantastic cast. Also,
in this movie, and
Dana Gorier, I believe
dude,
she's awesome.
Dana, Dana is the bomb. Like, and she was actually one of the roles that I fought for. I fought
Oh, nice.
to make sure that she was in this movie, because I loved her work. Of course, I saw her in Tarantino stuff, and then, um, uh, but then, like, you know, she came into it. I thought she would just fit the character of Wanda so well, and then, um, uh, uh, Bill Clark, who's our AD, who's Tarantino's AD, of course, worked with Dana, and he was just like, you have. She goes, she is fantastic. Like you will love her. And so like there was just all these things. And again, Dana is one of those that I also keep in touch with, and she's and such a amazing human being. And again, somebody that I do hope to work with again. Her and David are two people that I hope down the road I can give some really, really great, juicy, like less supporting, more like meaty character role to that, like, because I think they can do it. They can carry it. They really do some nice work. And I think somebody just has to give them that chance to like. I know Suicide Squad kind of did it with David, and David's kind of done some of his own independent films where he's kind of the front and center. But
But even Suicide Squad, I loved this character, but I was like, I wanted more. Like
yeah,
he's so good.
yeah, yeah, he's fantastic. He's such a good actor.
Yeah, dark story of his in that. And I guess it's interesting. I've worked a lot of jobs since college, and I keep in touch with a few coworkers from every job I've worked. And I guess for me at least, I never think about directors and cast and people keeping in touch after movies. I guess in my mind it was always like, well, it's a wrap. Like maybe see you on the set of another thing. So it's really cool to hear. You keep in touch with all of them, and yeah, that's really cool. And it's always so exciting when people reunite too, and work on more production in the future.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure. Yeah, like I'd love to bring back a handful of the cast that I've worked with. Like it's just they've I've been so lucky to be able to work with some of those people, and just to see their careers just explode after that was just it's really exciting to see them do some really phenomenal work.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess one more thing I got to point out about the domestics too is that the you had Tyler and Kate, the two main protagonists, and you have Clark Kent and Lois Lane, which I thought was I
I
didn't even
know.
realize till like halfway in the movie. I was like, oh yeah, that's
I
interesting.
swear to God, we did not try to do that. That was all by happenstance. But no, that was a lot of fun, and Kate is also somebody who um, wasn't at first wasn't at the top of the list, but then came by, and it really just kind of hit it on the head. Um, and we had a great conversation. That first time I met her was on Skype, and I mean I think the first chunk of our conversations we were just talking about, because the movie is so much about like it's post-apocalypse, it's like guns and shootouts and stuff, and she knows her guns, man. And so we spent like the first like 10-15 minutes just talking about like going to the range and shooting guns and target practice and what I like to shoot and stuff like that. It was just so it was great. Like she got it, and she was in that mindset, and she understood who Nina was. And again, another person who like is seems at times like you see her at times and you're like, she's literally on a different planet than I am. But then like you suddenly get a message from her just out of the blue, and she's like, Mike, what's going on? And you're just like, and it's always a good reminder though. It's like all these people are just people, and fucking not one of them is more or less fucked up than you are. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that's cool that you learn when you're working on sets like this. Like um, majority of people are really really good and sweet and truly human, and that's what's really special. And I think being able to see that side that most people don't get to.
It's always great to hear too about bands, when you meet your favorite band or stuff like that. That can change everything. If they're, if
Hmm.
they're not good people, you're like, well, I don't really want to listen to them anymore after that instance. And
Hmm.
one of the big questions I want to ask you. So you have Charlotte Vega in Wrong Turn, and then you have Kate Bosworth in the Domestics. So the two movies that you've directed here, and you wrote the Domestics as well. What has kind of been like the interest to have such the strong female lead? Like, did you grow up watching a lot of like Alien and those kind of heroine kind of movies? Like,
Yeah, like I think that has something to do with it. I think um with domestics, it was always a film about. It always started. I mean, when I came up with the idea, it was always a film about a marriage, and then it was just like, okay, marriage is definitely challenging. So how can we make it more challenging? Why don't we set it in the apocalypse and see what happens? And so, I think it was showing, it was getting in the shoes of somebody who really felt outside of the box in that world, and then sort of learns how to become that world. And yeah, I don't know. It's just there's something really fascinating, about to me about a strong female lead, about a strong female character that can just take the reins. Like I feel like growing up I was always wrong around strong women, and my wife is also, she's a very strong woman artist, fights for what she wants. And so it's just like it's inspiring. I don't know, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I think it's just what I gravitate towards. There's two scripts I'm working on now. One, two, well, actually it's it's three more scripts with three,
Nice.
three strong women coming into their own, and
Yeah.
realizing that they are stronger than they give themselves credit for. Um, yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to.
Well, we need more movies like that, so that's good. It's good to hear there's more in the works as well. And I just have to say, I love the opening of The Domestics, because one of my favorite horror movies, The Divide. I don't know if that movie opens up with the end of the world, literally in the opening scene, and then the voiceover, similarly says that the lucky ones died in the blast, and that's what I think the two most interesting things about The Domestics is that, like, one, it's a divorce movie or a falling apart marriage movie in the apocalypse. Like, they're not dealing with zombies, they're dealing with marital problems, which is super original. I love. And then just the opening scene of the movie is just kids outside of a school dying. I mean, like, that's not in a lot of theatrical releases. That's not in a lot of movies these days. And
And that
it's
was, yeah, that was a lot of play on, like, because at the time, like, that the sort of, well, Stranger Things was coming out, and there was a lot of, like, the harkening back to, like, the kids, the Spielbergian kids movies of the 80s were kind of getting this kind of comeback vibe. And it was sort of like this nod, but this also, like, this nod to, like, um this nod to the romanticism, and this nod to, like, the purity of that, and then just severing it is right away, and just being like, that's not this.
yeah, that
Which I
and
like. I like how quick it is too. Like it's and that same could be said for Wrong Turn, where you're really just immediately plunged right into this world, and like you see the smoke, and then you see the kid gets a nosebleed, and then all of a sudden we're in the apocalypse. So I
yeah,
like how fast of a transition it is already into the action of it all.
and
Yep,
I
we're there. It's all you need to see.
And and
Yeah.
and and that's the thing. You don't see anything with that, which I think is super exciting, leaving it to interpretation. I know one thing Tom and I definitely want to touch upon of the movie is the original NC-17 rating.
Oh,
So
jeez.
that is, I love hearing about that with movies. I know the head smashing scene is that in the DVD? I haven't made my way through the whole DVD yet.
It's not.
Okay.
So I think at one point we were going to put the uncut version on there, which, I mean, would have been fine, because I think special features can be unrated. But then there was, like, this talk, well, maybe we release an unrated. I don't think that's gonna. I don't think there's gonna be an unrated version release of this. But recently, and I don't know if you guys know about this, I just found out that Showtime is showing the NC-17 version of the movie
Oh wow.
with the
No.
heads, with the full-on head smash and everything.
I have
And the only
plans
reason
for
I know
tonight.
that, yeah, and the only reason I know this is because a guy on Instagram posted the clip, and I was like, "How did you get this? This was never released." And he goes, "Oh, I was watching it on Amazon Prime with the Showtime, plugin or
Wow.
whatever." And I was like, "No way!" And so, of course, like, I blasted it out. And I was like, "Hey, if you guys want to see why the movie was NC-17, I'm like, well, here's the clip." and and but yeah, that was really interesting, and that, I have a feeling, was a mistake. Um, I don't think that that was supposed to happen, but who at this point, who knows? Maybe somebody over at Saban just was like, "Here, take this version of the movie." And I still think they touted it as the R-rated version, though. So
Interesting. And I was gonna say the domestics you can buy on demand. You can also watch both movies on the Redbox streaming as well right now.
Oh, are they both on Redbox streaming? That's
Yeah.
cool. I didn't know that.
So we watched the domestic streaming, and I know Wrong
Okay.
Turn is on Redbox. I don't know if that was just to rent or just to stream, but I know it's on
Okay.
there. It's on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I mean, we definitely have some Wrong Turn questions. Are you good for,
Yeah, let's
for
go
some
into
more
it.
time? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get. I know you guys had some of those questions you sent me, so yeah, let's tackle them.
I don't even know where to begin. Yes, I mean, I think we covered a lot about your background, which is great, and about the movie. I guess one of the other kind of more outside of the direct thing here is kind of what made you sign on for this movie as a director, and how into the first the original series were you? Did you go back and rewatch all of them for inspiration? Like, what was kind of the I guess history behind all of it?
I saw Wrong Turn. I didn't see it in the theater, but I remember renting it at the video store. Um, I think I was at college. I was at film school or whatever, and I went to this. I went to like a video update or something like that, and and checked it out. And I actually really enjoyed it because like I love survival horror films, and
Mhm.
love Deliverance, and I'm gonna drop an old favorite, River Wild, with Meryl Streep and Kevin Bacon. Um, but I love those kind of movies, and so Wrong Turn, definitely stood out to me, and I liked it. And I remember watching it and remember being, very shocked with how graphic it was. Now, granted, at the time, I was also watching High Tension, so it was kind of like very similar levels
Yeah.
of explicit gore. But uh, with this movie, like I said, like I was pitching for a lot of different stuff and a lot of different types of films, mainly in the genre realm, anywhere from like this weird shark movie where these people kidnapped Olympic athletes and forced them to swim in a pool, and then they would bet on how long they could survive.
That is
And
100% up my alley. That is
like so there was that movie that I pitched with, and the writer of that one was John Scott the third, who wrote the movie Maggie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, I've been
Oh,
waiting
okay.
to
So
watch
him
that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, him and I actually went around town. We pitched to like 10 studios, but everybody was like, it's going to be too expensive, or it's just too weird. Um, but and I'll come back to that because that actually plays a huge part into how I got Wrong Turn. Wrong Turn came across my desk through my manager, Noah Rosen over at Writ Large, and God, I love Noah. He's great. Him and Britton are great, and they're always looking out. And they knew I was looking for work. They knew I was getting tons of no's, and I was like, and they're like, Mike, I represent a writer. His name is Alan McElroy, and he wrote this script, and I think you should check it out. And he sent me Wrong Turn, and this is my reaction. I just like it was like I freaking face palmed and just I was like, oh my god, like am I really gonna go for am I gonna do this? And like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna read this. Like let's do it. And I actually I after I read it, I kind of felt bad about sighing so hard when I got it because I was like, this is really freaking good.
It is.
And it ultimately like it showed me that uh that you really, I mean, it's like kind of what the movie's about. You can't judge a book by its cover. Ultimately, like you think you know what it is, and it's not. And so but yeah, I was really into it. I was it was a very unexpected read, and um I immediately got ideas. There were immediately things that struck a chord with me. Obviously, the skull masks, and doing world building, and which domestics was a huge part of domestics, and now I got to there'd be a whole new world to kind of build up on this mountain and make this whole group of people design their outfits, and make a survival flick and make booby traps. Like it was all these things that speak to my just to the things that I like. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm into this. And so thought about it for, I think, there was a few weeks that I kind of digested it and really decided if I want to go for this, because then you go for it and you pitch for it, and then you sit there for weeks and you come up with the pitch on what you want to do. So it's time consuming. You don't want to sit there and take the time to do it if you don't love it. and I did. I fell in love with it, and a lot of it was just like, there were things that like I was like, okay, I think I can. I felt like I could really make this my own, and so I came up with some stuff and flew out to LA and met with Robert, and this is where the shark movie thing kind of comes full circle, where it was a time where, like I said, like I had went around town and I pitched this slasher movie about a mom who loses her two sons, and then hires or goes after the slasher killers that murdered her two boys, and got it. I think I pitched some of the best pitches I ever had in my life for that, but they were all no's. And then had the opportunity to do the shark movie, and went out and pitched that, and it was like, all no's. And one of the places that we pitched the shark movie, actually I pitched both of those movies to, was this Robert Kulzer at Constantine. And I remember being a little bit intimidated walking into that office. He's this tall, very like sits up straight, this German man who has this very thick accent. And he just kind of sat there. He goes, "Okay, let's hear it." And he just sat there and stared at us as we gave the pitch for the shark movie. And when I pitched, I put on a show, so I had brought music on my laptop, and I
Cool.
was acting out like how one of the characters kills somebody to this old Phil Spector track by the Crystals, and like and he started to laugh, he started to smile, he's like really starting to like he liked this, and ultimately we got a pass from him. But then when he found out that I had read Wrong Turn and that I was interested, he goes, "Wait a second, Mike Nelson." He goes, "Was that the guy who pitched that crazy ass shark movie?" And Noah was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Send him in. Like I want to talk to him." And
Yes.
so he invited me over to the office again, and I got to pitch. I did a light pitch. Like I had key ideas that I was able to bring up to him, and he was like, "Okay." He goes, "I really like this." He goes, I'd love you to go back. I'd love you to put together like an actual pitch, and then we'll talk." And I was like, "Okay." Went back, spent, I don't know, maybe a month or so just kind of putting my thoughts together, really getting stuff together, and then it was time. And they didn't fly me back out again. They were just like, "You know what? We're just gonna call you," which is like, I was like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Does this mean like they're not serious, or is this like I already have it and like they just want to tell me yes?
You're a shoe in.
Ultimate. So I didn't know, and my manager was like, "No, no, I just do the thing," and pitched to them for like an hour and a half on the phone, just
Wow.
everything. It was all voice. I had sent them sent them a mood board and stuff, but like most of it was just all about like visual. It just spoke the visuals and spoke casting ideas and all this stuff. And by the end of the call, they were like, "Okay, so yeah, do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yes." And so it was like at that point I'd gotten the job and things started moving, and it was really exciting. And then of course, there was the ups and downs over the course of the year, and then eventually, we signed on producer James Harris, who just did the new Resident Evil movie with Johannes Roberts.
So excited.
And James is amazing. James is just like, James is the guy. It's like as soon as you put James on the project, it's like it's kind of like the ticket, like it's going to get made because he makes sure of it. And that's why I really want to work with him again, because I just know that like he's the guy that's gonna he gets shit done. And he's just a fucking cool dude. But anyway, we went into it, and I had the meetings with him. I had the meetings with the writer, with Alan, who I him and I were just talking today about a new script that he's writing that I'm gonna hopefully direct next year, which is super exciting. And so I love working with him, and had a great relationship. And then it really came down to the Robert and Alan. They just really wanted to make something different and unique. And see, you can walk into a room, you can talk to these guys, and ultimately see like they're wavery, they're not quite sure what they want to do, or they still want to like make sure that they're cool with that the old ones are still represented and stuff. They're both like, no, no, like we don't care. Like basically, they told me, we know that people are going to hate this movie. There's going to be people that don't like it, and that's just the way it is. We don't want to make another cannibal movie with Three Finger. No, we're done with that. We want to do something different, unique that speaks to the times now. You know, and that was what that was 2018. Um, and you know, so there was already some boiling going on in the world at that time, and you know, Alan was ready to write something that spoke to that, and you know, but we still wanted to be like it's still we still want to be horror thriller, we still want to be survival, and it could still be violent, and I was like, okay. And so just having these two guys who were adamant and had their own strong opinions that, you know, this is how we'd like it to be, and we hired you because you want it to be that way. Like I was in to do this like right away because I was like, I know I'm going to have a team that's going to back me up, and that's the way it was. Like through the majority of the whole process, it was making the movie. It was like they were always there to back you up and to support you. And the one thing that I found out is as long as you have a strong point of view, even if they're questioning things, that point of view goes a real long way.
Was there ever an idea to name it anything else, or was it always like this is a reboot, this is a new telling, a new?
So that went back and forth a little bit. When I got the script, it was called Wrong Turn. Like very first script I got, Wrong Turn. And so I was like, okay, that's what it is. And then there was a discussion at one point. Well, and well, what's interesting about the title though was the title discussion was more. I think it was more like there was some legal issues that they weren't sure because I think the first movie was distributed by 20th Century Fox,
Mhm.
and they didn't know if that was going to be a problem. So they were like, look, we have to make sure that like we have our we're covered. We're going to make sure. Let's just think of some other titles just in case if we can't use Wrong Turn, and who knows, maybe it'll be better if we do that. And ultimately the movie gets finished, and at one point it was like Wrong Turn, and then they were like, no, let's just maybe we just call it the Foundation. And then they were like, no, no, no,
Ooh.
no, no, we're not going to call it the Foundation because there's a show on Apple or whatever called Foundation that's coming out, and we don't want to get confused with that, even though there's no way the thing would get confused. But then yeah, I mean, then there was Wrong Turn colon the Foundation, and I know like people who are mad about the fact that this movie even exists are like, you should have just called it Wrong Turn the Foundation. You should have just called it the Foundation. It's like ultimately people saw the movie and were like, no, that's Wrong Turn. And so we're like, okay, then we're gonna go with Wrong Turn. And obviously Saban was like, no, we really like to like keep the name, and I think that'll not only help the film, but I think they looked back to the original script and they're like, this is the original script by the original writer, and it says Wrong Turn. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And we're like, I'm like, I'm not gonna argue. Like, just I made the movie. That's cool. Like, do what you want to do.
And it's
Also, something is interesting if you compare the original to this one. In the original, technically they don't take a wrong turn. They
They
this
don't.
booby trap. Yeah, but in your movie, they definitively do take a wrong turn. They decide to go off the beaten trail, off the Appalachian Trail, and venture out. So,
Yep. Yeah.
but yeah. So a question I had is regarding so our main group of characters. So again, right when we start the movie, they are very much already on the Appalachian Trail. They already have a history. There's already a bond between all of them. I guess how do you, as a director, engage with them in a way, or how do you approach creating that sense of history between characters? Knowing they're already friends. They already have there's all these relationships already formed between them. Is there any particular method or way you engage with your actors to make sure that that sells?
Yeah. I mean, we'd casted the movie. Gosh, I can't remember how long before we started shooting, but like we cast the movie, and I had asked, with the exception of Charlotte, because she's from Spain, um, that everybody get together and hang out. And so everybody did. Everybody hung out, and then I think there was an email thread where they talked. There were Skype calls or Zoom calls between them all, um, and it was like the homework that I gave them. I was like, the one thing that I asked for you guys to do is just like get into each other's worlds, like talk to each other every week, reach out to each other, just see how each other's day is going, like whatever it is, just do it. And you just have to trust that they're going to do that, you know? And because I was like, you guys, and what's great about it is they all wanted it to work too. Because I was like, you guys are friends. Like, this isn't like, you know, a group of randos who come together and then they have to deal with each other. It's like, you guys are legitimately supposed to be friends and we need to feel that relationship. It's got to work. It can't feel forced. And they all agreed really strongly with it. So I think, you know, just the fact that they all took their jobs really seriously and wanted to do well, that they all did it. And I heard all about it. And so when I met them all for the first time, and then we're all in the same room, like they all sort of like they're all chummy with each
Oh,
other
okay.
already, which was great.
So they did their
And
homework.
yeah, they did their homework. You know, some of them were more chummy than others because they automatically bonded with a certain person in the group, and you know, and so it was really cool to see that, and you can feel that in the movie with certain characters, and some of those friendships were very real, you know, at the time. And I know, for instance, Verdun, who plays Gary, he's out in Spain right now, and I think he's hanging out with Charlotte,
Oh,
like
really?
as we speak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right now. So I
Wow.
mean, the friendships lasted after the project, and you know, I still keep in touch with them. They're again just a group of really great people. Um, but that was huge. That was a huge part of the movie, and I felt like it was definitely a make or break element of that, was giving them chemistry.
The whole commentary part about Gary's character dying on the hill, and how everybody sat down together and prepped for the scene, and the reactions were all filmed right, you know, then, and how excited he was to to be the first one to die and let out
He
that
was so
scream.
excited.
And I mean,
Yeah,
you watch it and you go, how is it NC-17? Because the stump scene, obviously we don't see that in the original cut, but the tree stump scene with Gary is pretty disturbing as well. I mean, was there any part where that didn't, where like
mm,
that just went right through?
that went right through.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what the MPA said to us was the biggest reason the execution scene got the NC-17 was not necessarily just seeing a head get smashed. It was the scene itself.
Yeah.
It's because it's an execution. It's because of the intensity of the moment and witnessing the act, like the characters reacting to it. Like it was a puzzle that was put together and fit the bill for the rating, basically.
It wasn't
Because I mean,
just a
gosh, yeah, I mean, we've all seen heads get smashed in movies. I mean, look at Midsummer for crying out loud. Like, I mean, you saw, there's a little bit more of a distance, but you see the hammer come down and clock the head,
yeah.
and I mean,
Oh,
and
and the ritual in that movie when
Yeah.
that
Yeah. That's
incredibly
what did it for
gory.
me. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
mean, and so it's like, you know, and so in any case, like, I mean, that was more of the reasoning behind that. Was it wasn't just the gore, it was the actual intensity of the scene leading up into the act of violence, which then was like the cherry on top, if you will.
Right,
So
right. Well, I mean, because that that one shot, is crazy. And I know in the commentary you talk about how it was this really cool collaboration of both practical and CGI elements, which is awesome to see. And especially when even looking at that shot, it just looks to me, it looks all practical, and that goes for a lot of the gore in this movie. Um,
well, and honestly, the majority of the gore is it's practical elements just composited together. Like, you know, it's compositing part of Gary's face on the actual dummy head that we had that was actually smashed and the jaw was out. So it looks very photorealistic because we actually shot the actor in that same location on in that, like, we literally put Gary in there, had him like turn his eye, took a picture, or
Oh, cool.
rolled footage on it.
yeah,
Cool.
Then, you know, visual effects took that footage and placed it on the dummy and melded it into the dummy's face, because the dummy, like, the bottom half of the dummy's face looked really good with the teeth, but the top half was a little chunky. But it didn't matter because we knew what we were planning on doing, and and it ended up, you know, working out well. And then they were able to add, you know, a few embellishes like blood filling up in the eye, and I think there was like a small drop of blood that drops on the jacket. But like other than that, like the majority of the gore, even like the head smash, like if you're ever able to see the version on Showtime, the scene. Otherwise, if you go on my Instagram, I have it in one of the stories. You can see it, and but it literally is just it's a combination of different plates that we shot on that day with Bill Sage and Adam, and then Adam's dummy double. Um, and they just again like they just cut them all together and placed them and blended them, and so it's all very practical. It's just different parts put together.
One of the and that was really cool in the commentary to learn about the traps and the golf cart pulling the character into the hole and everything made out of foam. I would say that the two biggest questions I have, hypothetical I guess, is the scene with Lewis where he gets blinded and thrown into the dark cave. How mad was his character that Jen waited those extra 3 minutes to pitch that her and Darius become tribe members? And if he didn't try to run off, because he tries to run away, he gets a knife in his back, and he's the first one to get blinded. If he didn't do that, would they have blinded Jen or Darius first? Like, I have so many questions around that. I have questions around. I just picture Lewis getting thrown in the cave. Like, really, Jen? Really?
Yeah.
You had to. You couldn't have come up with that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think there's a few things that it plays into it. Plays into um, characters in this situation and basically freezing. Basically, they just witnessed one of their friends die, and now like this is happening. This is a nightmare in front of them, and you see Jen. She's just like she's frozen. Um,
It's the shock.
yeah,
Yeah.
Louis making the choice to run is sucks, but again, it's like every character in the movie
He sealed his
makes a
fate.
choice. They make their own choices in the movie, and some are good and some are bad. Um, and it also gives us the visual of what these people actually do.
When
Um,
when she
because I mean,
kills. So,
I mean, yeah, well, yeah, and then of course when she mercy kills him at the end, which that's another interesting story. So that was something that we got a little pushback for.
that's the hardest part for me to watch in the movie, but it makes sense. I guess I wonder, was there ever a future where Jen thought, I'm going to get back home, call the FBI, call the authorities, rescue all these cave people? Because was he as far gone as the other ones at that point? I know they're all hypotheticals. That's why I like these questions.
Yeah, yeah.
But sorry,
I mean, it's
sorry.
very,
What were you
it's
saying?
no, no. It's very hypothetical, but at the same time, I think, um, I don't think. I think that there. I mean, look, it's probably a handful of weeks, if not just a couple months, since she's left the place. I always imagine, the foundation is a hard place to find. It's why they get brought there. It's not
Yeah.
as simple as just going out. I guess there's satellite stuff now, whatever. But um, I think that there could have been that side to the story or whatever. But ultimately, it's maybe it could be something that comes in down the road, but I don't
Mm.
want to get into that so much right now.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, it wasn't something that Alan had in the script. It wasn't something that we discussed as being a turn that we wanted to take it.
Yeah.
Um, um, they got out, but a father rescuing his daughter,
Yeah.
you know, daughter coming to terms with what she's went through, um, and that was that. So I think you get into semantics, but then I think at the same time things become more complicated and maybe less effective.
Yeah.
And I gotta
What?
say too that that cave scene, that when she puts Lewis out of his misery, I really like that too, because to me it's such a fast moment where you see how the foundation has changed her. Like she's much more brutal now. So
Like you
it
said,
makes,
mercy kill.
yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And you even see her father Matthew Modine and his like reaction to it. It's like, oh, okay, like this is my daughter. Like it's So it's cool. Just in that scene alone, you see how much she has changed since being taken prisoner by them. So
And
Yep.
Luis knew it was her, right? You can kind of sense that, like, he knew she was standing in front of him.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that was. I mean, at least on the day, I remember, explaining that to him. Like, I was like, you feel the light from the you feel the heat from the flame. Like, there's
Yeah.
somebody there. Somebody's there, but you also sort of know. And he goes, no, no, no. He goes, I totally get it. He goes, yep, I'm in.
Yeah.
And so that was,
That
yeah.
was the hardest part for me. And then one of the other things with Mila in the trap, was she?
Ah,
I know. I heard that was like one of the hardest things to the hardest deaths and all of that. Was was she the Foundation member who killed her with the arrow? And this is another thing where I really think hard into it. Was he killing her as this is a bad person, or was he putting out of her misery because he knew she was going to die there anyway?
I think there's a line in the script that says that, like, and the arrow releases,
Hmm.
and she's struck, and then the line under says, mercy kill or pure brutality.
Nice.
Like, I remember reading that. I think that it was something like that, the way Alan wrote it, and I was like, yeah, and to me, that's what makes it so interesting, is because, um, you do learn about these people, and you do learn that they're not just a bunch of crazy psychopaths. But like in every society, there's still bad seeds, and I think, Hobbes is a perfect example of that.
Mhm.
Who's somebody who's a pretty much a shyster in the Foundation's community, because I think a majority of the people that are there aren't terrible people. They're
Yeah.
just they're just doing their thing, and they strongly believe in it.
which
Was
that kind of leads into what's fascinating is when I first watched this, I didn't read into anything. So obviously the first first act, it's kind of following a similar ish structure to the first movie, and then once we start learning about the Foundation, the movie changes pace pretty fast. And I love the fact that there is some of these kind of moral implications in the movie where you know, I feel like in other horror movies, if for instance when Adam kills Samuel, um, it might have just been brushed off for like, of course we kill him because these are bad people. But right away, they're questioning, why did you kill him? What did he do to you? And then from there, you're right. We start questioning the validity of the Foundation, and to me that makes for such a unique horror movie. And it really kind of it goes in a lot of ways. It kind of goes beyond horror, which is cool.
That's what I loved about the commentary is you call this more of a survival thriller, more of a survival movie, and that's what makes it so wildly different than the original. Is I tell people watch The New Wrong Turn, they're like, I can't do cannibals, I can't do gore, I can't do, and I'm like, torture, I don't want to watch a torture movie, and I'm like, there's some gore, sure, but this is a lot differently paced. It's a totally different movie, and it's just, some people who like certain types of horror are gonna like this more than the original. It's just very different, which I loved.
Well, it's good. I'm glad.
Yeah, and then I was gonna say, was there ever a draft or a scene where Darius shows up at the end at Jen's
No,
house? Okay,
no,
so that was something
no.
else, and
That
and
was We definitely wanted to keep that separate. He's, whether we're able to continue the story later, that's another discussion. But no, Darius was not supposed to come back. This was a standoff between Jen and Venable.
the watching the end, the mother's face twitching on the floor, the dream sequence of that, and the RV and the credits. I love watching with people to see their reaction because it's just like I feel like it's one of those things where you want to put a heart rate monitor on them and check the last few scenes of the movie. I mean, the end of it is so beautiful with her and Ruthie just walking away. I mean, it's
And funny enough, like, that actually wasn't in the original draft.
yeah.
Hmm.
I can't remember if I mentioned that in the commentary or not, but yeah, that was a fun discovery, if you will. That, still surprised that they let us do it.
Yeah.
not to mention again, like I think I mentioned in the commentary, like we were literally shooting that dinner table scene. We had to leave the dinner table scene, go outside, crash a car, shoot her stabbing the guys, and walk by the camera, and then we had to jump back into the house and keep shooting.
Wow. Yeah, in the commentary you mentioned there's one ending where I think she doesn't get off the mountain, and then another ending where she just gets in the RV and goes back with them, and that's how it ends.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
I think the very first draft of the script was actually the very first draft of the script was her and her dad fight their way off the mountain, and it was like very like Game of Thrones, like guys on
epic.
horseback and big clubs and like very medieval almost. And not only was that way out of our budget range, what we were making, but it also felt out of tone. And so when we were coming up with ideas, like the whole idea of going to Jen's home and then having Foundation show up was a very intriguing idea. And at first, there was like this thought, like, well, do we just go full on home invasion, or do we do something, a little bit more subtle? And we like the idea of something more subtle and more tense. And then, there was the idea of like her just saves her family and they drive off, which is, very much like we'll call it the kind of Ari Aster ending, which is very like sullen and just like, oh, I just want to murder myself. Um, but then there was always this thing that Robert was like, Mike, if you can think of a different way to end the movie, don't don't be scared to tell me. Like
Cool.
I'm just he goes if you don't, I think this ending works fine. But if you do, and yeah, this was something I came up with when I think we were out. We had just gotten out to Ohio to start shooting, or to in pre-production, and I was thinking about it. Gosh, I love old RVs, and man, would it be cool to crash one and then Jen just murders everybody. And like it kind of at the time, maybe it was kind of like a pipe dream. Like I didn't think it was a reality, but it ultimately ended up being something that we were able to do. And I think it's definitely the film's identity. Like without I can't imagine the movie without it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like it was such like surprise to see that scene play out, because I thought it was just going to be her riding away with them, and then to see her, to see Jen just become this like ultra badass, and also too, like I love, just seeing like in actual the fact you actually crashed an RV, and in the domestics too, there's a lot of like carnage with vehicles too. I love just the practicality of all that.
The plow.
The plow, yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Like to see a car get that large get flipped on its head, just in like real life. You're sitting there is
Yeah.
is a pretty incredible thing to watch.
I
Let
just
alone like capture on film.
I like
yeah.
you're just like, I want to crash a car, and they're like, cool, put it in the script, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but there was conditions though. They were like, we can't give you more time, so you have to figure out a way to fit it into your schedule. And
Wow.
so, thank thank God for our AD Doug Turner and again James our producer and Brianna our our supervisor production supervisor, like they were instrumental in making sure that happened. And so, and of course the stunt guys, fucking TJ White and his crew were just like I mean they had to get out there on a dime. Like we had to buy this thing, like bought the RV for like a couple $100 and just like it's just like, and they had to figure it out right away. Like it was a very crazy thing, but I mean it was also very safe. And at the time, like it seems like everybody's in the RV, but if we want to pull back the curtain a little bit, they weren't all in the RV. It was literally only the stunt guy, and he's strapped in. Like he's literally like belted into this thing. Where like as soon as it crashes, like we let it like hold there for a little bit, and then they ran over and they like have to like kind of cut him out of it. So he's very safe in there. And then we just don't move the camera. We roll again and we bring everybody in there, and then we blended the two shots together again, just like the compositing that we do with the head smashing and stuff. It's all about piecing the same shot together and giving that illusion that everybody was in there. We
Movie
weren't going to
magic.
crash a car with a 10-year-old girl in it. There's no
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, and I have
uh
to ask you about the girl, because I know you kind of imbued some influences. You said in the beginning of the movie there was you talked about the commentary that it was reminiscent of Race with the Devil, and there was a Nosferatu little reference in there too.
The
Uh,
shadow on the tent.
yeah, with the shadow intent, which was awesome.
Who was that? Sorry, Tom. That was one of my questions. Who's the shadow of the tent? Who's in the Airbnb walking by
Oh
it?
yeah.
It's Hobbs.
Okay, that's what I
Okay,
was-
it is Hobbs. Yeah.
got it. Okay, sorry, Tom.
No, it's all good. I was gonna say, so with that said, and I know we literally mentioned Alien a couple times in this episode, but was Ruthie in any way inspired by is it Newt from
Newt.
Aliens? Yeah, because
That's a good question. I didn't ask Alan that because I mean she's always been in there. Um, as a character that's been a positive character for Jen. Um, maybe. I mean, I guess I didn't think about her that way so much. Um, but
well, it clicked in with the final shot because just them holding hands, I'm like, it's kind of
Sure.
like how Ripley took her under her wing in a sense.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely,
so
absolutely. I guess I didn't like directly think of it that way, but I could definitely see, especially the fact that Aliens is one of my all-time favorites. That deep down in my brain, that's
Subconscious.
just subconsciously that's what I wanted to do or whatever.
What did Ruthie see in Jen that she didn't see in Edith? What was the kind of like draw towards Jen?
Um, I think it's she saw in Jen. I think what we all see in Jen, like when we first meet her, we see, I mean, she is the one that you want to be friends with of this whole group. Like she might be a little bit lost in life, like she's not quite sure what path she wants to take. No pun intended. But I mean, and ultimately that's why Jen wants to hang out with all the people she hangs out with because they all have their lives figured out,
Yeah.
and she loves that. And I think Ruthie just sees sincerity. I think Ruthie's so used to the foundation and the very strict, very rigid nature of that community, and she saw like this ray, this hope, this light, um, and I think she was drawn to that, and so that's why she's there to help. And she obviously doesn't see that in Adam when she basically throws him under the bus.
Yes.
um, but no, I think she sees that in Jen, and I think that's why ultimately she helps her, and then she ends up coming out of it with her.
I know we have to wrap up here pretty soon. I want to pitch one mini thing about a wrong turn because I told you I'm a huge fan of all of the other 6 of them. I want a wrong turn movie that is reminiscent of the Jurassic Park where the dinosaurs come into suburbia. I want a wrong turn where Three Finger or the Foundation, starts to blend with a New York City or a something like that. I would find that to be very interesting.
Well, so I mean, you already know that I'm a huge fan of Race with the Devil, and I've already had several conversations with Alan about what a possible follow-up could be. Again, not that there is one happening
Sure.
right now or anything like that, but if there were to, um, there's some things that you just said there that play in a little bit to what that idea could be. And I think you would really, really enjoy it because I 100% agree with you. I think it could be a lot of fun because ultimately, um, there's just as many wrong turns to take off the mountain as there is on it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I would love to see that. I guess I tell people this is not only one of my favorite horror movies of the year, it's one of my favorite movies. And every time you watch it, you pick up on new things. The commentary opened my eyes to a lot of things too. So I would love to see more from this. Of course, the cast. And I mean, I remember I specifically read about the movie on bloodydisgusting.com. I woke up one day and I read that it's a 2-part movie.
Yep.
It's a final girl film and it's a survival horror film, and it didn't spoil it for me. I still went into it, and I mean that's what's so interesting about the commentaries. You say it didn't always start off with Matthew Bodine's character trying to find somebody. Like there's just it's so original, it's so different. One of the things in the commentary you point out is the whole movie revolves around Gary's death. And most
Hmm.
horror movies, somebody gets killed and they go, oh, Ted's gone. Like let's move on. And like this is one where you feel it, that sulken, that feeling throughout the whole movie, which is super interesting. So I would love
Yeah.
to see anything else from this, and I think that's super exciting that there's even talks about anything.
Yeah, and to be fully honest with you, I would love to be able to continue the world. Like I think something that would be a dream to be able to 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 wrap it up in a trilogy, just like a 3-part story, and out
Yeah.
there, because
Oh, that'd be great. Because
we
I
we
also feel like there's
yeah.
not like there's. It feels like there's more to Darius now that he's fully
Mhm.
interwoven into the foundation. I feel like there's. It almost feels like there's more to him now.
I
Yeah.
I I love that scene when they throw Luis down the cave and they're like, "We don't have cancer. We're a sustainable community. We're this," and you just see Darius like click, and he's
Yep.
like, "Oh, I found my home." I
Yep.
thought that was super great. And then when Jen offers herself up to Venable, it kind of seems as well that like he already had that in mind, which I thought was interesting. Like she offers
Hmm.
herself up, and he's like, "Oh, good, same page." But
Yep. Yep.
as you mentioned in the commentary, you kind of flipped it where it wasn't like Venable kidnapped her and was like, you are now my wife. She was like, listen, this is the female empowerment movie. This is the watching her make her own decisions all the way through everything. And I
Yeah.
guess, was she ever a Foundation member, or was she always waiting to get off that mountain?
Yeah. I feel like she was. I always feel like Jen was always biding her time. Like
Yeah.
she was waiting for the moment. She knows she doesn't. That's not her home. But her dad complicated things. She had to go quicker. It had to get messy.
Yeah.
And she might have found there might have been a better way or an easier way that she could have escaped. But yeah, with her dad showing up and them going to sentence him to darkness, she had to make it happen.
Yep. I always think about that. Like if I were in the shoes, I would pretend for a decade if I had to, gain their trust, and then say, "Hey, let me go to town with Ruthie and go sell some bracelets," and then hop on the
Yep.
next bus out
Out.
there.
Done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had
But
mentioned
yeah,
your Instagram earlier too. Where can people follow you? Where can people see that NC-17 take
yeah, that's my Instagram is just at Rockford Road.
for road? Perfect.
And I usually just post stuff about the stuff I'm working on, or pictures of my VHS collection. Oh, I gotta show you guys this thing
Yes.
really quick.
Oh, please do. It's a dope collection.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
So this is like this artist that makes and the movie's actually on here too.
No way.
Yeah. So if you're listening
Amazing.
on the podcast, this is the sound of tape slipping out. You can hear that. That is Wrong Turn 2021 on a VHS tape. Oh, and the artist who did this, her name is Katie Video. You can also find her on Instagram. Um, the very first thing that shows up on this tape is the trailer for the first Wrong Turn movie.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
So that comes on, and then followed by the entire 2 hour long, hour 49-minute movie. And so it was really cool to watch the scraggly, jagged VHS quality
You
of
can't
a film.
rewind, you can't fast forward, you can't talk during it. Yeah.
It's just this is it. So,
That is
but yeah,
so cool.
Yeah, that's
yeah, it's
awesome.
pretty awesome.
Wow. Is that on your social as well? A closer look? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. And is there anything, I know we talked a little bit about some projects you've worked on. I know you said you have about, 3 in develop, or 3 you're working on right now with the female leads. Is there anything you can talk about? Anything on, coming to your IMDb soon? Anything that's greenlit or anything?
I mean, right now I'm working with Brad Fuller and Alex Gino over at Fuller Media. Brad Fuller is one of the producers on the Purge series and Quiet Place.
Cool.
So I have a little um, little UFO movie maybe happening there.
Ooh.
Uh,
Man.
one of my favorite,
Sharks, UFOs.
yeah, one of my favorite movies growing up was Fire in the Sky, so it very much inspired by that. Um, Doing like a Christmas holiday horror film with Hollywood Gang, who I did Domestics. So I'm writing that right now, and I am working on. Alan is writing a new script that I'll be directing. That Constantine is going to be doing with us. That's another another survival, very much another survival film, and it's nuts. I'm not going to say what it exactly is, but when the news eventually drops, it's pretty flat out. You'll get what it is.
Cool.
But it's very intense and very uh, yeah. It's another good old fashioned bloody romp. So I think people will enjoy it. It will be very fun and unexpected.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
exciting. And that's also with Alan McElroy.
Alan McElroy and yeah, with Constantine.
Oh, beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Robert Calzer and then the other producer is Jeremy Bolt, and he was one of the producers on Event Horizon.
Oh wow. Heck yeah.
Oh,
I just
nice.
watched that. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
we would love to have you on again and talk about Domestics now that we just watched that. And
Yeah,
hopefully we can have you on
absolutely.
in the future to talk about all these new projects. We're super excited. We'll follow you on social as well. And any parting words, any last advice for screenplay writers or directors or filmmakers?
I mean, if anybody who's heard the other ones that I've done, like I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but honestly, you just kind of have to write like every day. Just write
Yeah.
every day, and always write. Always write for yourself. That can get tricky, especially when you have to do rewrites for people that ask specific things of you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, a strong point of view goes a very long way and is usually very, very respected, or at least res- um, you're working with good people if they see that um, that strong point of view, and you can hold on to that. Ultimately, nobody wants an artist who's just a yes man. Um, they want somebody that comes in there who's got their own thing going on, um, and somebody that sets them apart from everybody else. So I think that's a huge thing, is to not be swayed that you have to do something to get into a chair or to get into that room or to get your script seen. You're going to get your stuff seen because it's you and because you are different than that guy or that girl or whoever. You are going to have an original voice. So that's the thing that you need to work on, is that, and focusing in on that.
Cool. Well, great advice, and thank you so much for coming on. We love this movie. We have 1,000 more questions. We'll get out at some other point in the future, but super
Absolutely.
excited to hear about everything else coming up. Check out us, Weiliotis Podcast online, and also follow Mike as well. Learn about his new projects, and check out his VHS collection as well.
It's awesome. But thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good, guys. Well, yeah, thanks for reaching out, and let me know if you want to do this again.
Yeah,
I'm down.
sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll do.
Thank you. Yeah, we're this can be off script now, I guess, but yeah, we'll have this out on Halloween this week, so we'll send it to you.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, what better way to do it? Thanks so much for going over on time too. Super
Yes.
appreciate covering.
It always happens. Like, I don't think I've ever been on. Like, I think the only time that I was ever like we ever had to get kicked off was when we were doing the press junket, and I was on phone calls. Like, there was literally a lady from the press, from the PR firm, who would chime in and be like, "Okay, you guys got to wrap it up," or like, "You have 5 minutes," or "This is the last question."
We got to hire an assistant or intern to keep us on our toes a little more. That should definitely be good. Also, apologies for I have a 12-year-old pug, so he's a little bit needy. But luckily, most people only listen to this, so they won't see my my absence. But
Yeah,
that's so
all good.
exciting to hear about everything else. The shark thing is 100% up my alley. We just wrote an alligator creature feature movie. So I love that kind of stuff. That's super exciting. And yeah, I won't pry, but I cannot wait to hear about more Wrong Turn expansion and for that to go out on your social media. So yeah, we'll send you this when it's live. We'll tag you on Instagram. Anything else? A Facebook page or Twitter we should tag you on?
Uh, my Facebook page is pretty just like my own stuff. It's really just I usually keep it pretty family orientated.
Okay.
So
Okay.
honestly, my Instagram is just it's
Cool.
kind of just like it's the main outlet. So
Okay.
I would say that's the one where most people who would want to listen or are into the movie will
Cool.
find this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, we'll follow you
Perfect.
individually and from our podcast. And thanks again so much. And yeah, we'll plan out something again in the future. And best of luck with everything in the meantime.
you guys are awesome. Thank you
Hey,
so,
nice
and
meeting
awesome
you.
questions. Awesome questions,
Oh,
by the
good.
way. I love it.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Super
I
nervous.
always like I like when somebody puts me on my toes because I'm like, God, I never. Let's see. Did I think about that? Well, yeah, maybe I did. I don't know. Shit.
We did our
So,
homework and we're big film buffs, and that's why this is fun to do and have people on. So yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a real pleasure, man. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a good
likewise.
night.
All right. Yeah, take it easy.